Quite possibly since the dawn of gaming, when people were making tennis games out of old radar equipment, video game developers have been hiding secrets deep within their games. And probably one of the best known examples of such is the humble secret level.
Usually they're accessible via passcodes, secret entrances, or stupidly long quest chains. And some of these levels are weird. Very weird. Okay, everyone knows about things like the Wolfenstein 3D levels in Doom 2, the secret cow area in Diablo 2, Chris Holohan's room in The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, blah blah blah. Heard them all before, shut up WhatCulture, we don't care about those things. However, are you familiar with levels like the Grand Vomitorium? What about developers adding games within games secretly? Nah, we didn't think so. Anyway, I'm Jake the Voice Parr.
And I'm Deuterium the Sentient Mattress.
And these are 10 crazy and obscure secret levels in video games.
Not the definitive top 10 or anything, just 10 we happen to like.
Yeah, we've actually got some original entries. We're not Watch Mojo after all.
Also, this isn't Fact Hunt, we promise. May the great Guru Larry have mercy on our souls. The beloved Castlevania series should not need very much in the way of an introduction. After all, it lent half its name to the Metroidvania genre. For a good 30-odd years, people have been enjoying the endless plight of the Belmont family as they battle repeatedly against famous vampire and Vlad the Impaler XP Count Dracula. According to many, the best game of the entire series is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the 1997 installment for the PlayStation. This entry was a first for the series in many ways, introducing more RPG-like elements to the Metroidvania formula, and introducing the world to some of the hammiest lines in gaming history.
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
It also introduced players to a secret area that literally doubles the size of the game. Warning, spoilers may follow, so if you're playing the game, we suggest you skip this part. At one point, player character Alucard must fight against Richter Belmont, who is under the spell of one of Dracula's servants. Alternatively, if the player finds a number of items hidden around the castle and frees Richter from the spell instead, an upside-down version of the castle will descend from the sky. And this castle is literally a vertical mirror image of the game's entire map. The objective in this castle is to retrieve the pieces of Dracula's body a la Castlevania 2, which if completed nets you one of the game's good endings. Well, as they say, go big or go home. And this game went and did both.
.3D Realms' classic shooter Duke Nukem 3D certainly had its fair share of bullets, bombs, and babes. It also had plenty of expansion packs, both official and unofficial. Duke It Out in DC was an official expansion pack created by Sunstorm Interactive and published by WizardWorks Incorporated in 1997. After discovering those alien maggots have just captured infamous womanizer and ex-president Bill Clinton, Duke must fight his way through 9 brand new levels set in places like the White House, the Smithsonian Museum, and many more historical monuments in order to prove that he is indeed a bad enough dude to rescue the president, if you'll pardon the tired reference. The secret level, appropriately named Top Secret, is set in an underground storage facility. Hidden among mountains of crates and incubators is a time machine that'll send you back to ancient times, where the invaders have holed up in a nearby Aztec temple full of moats, waterfalls, and spacious corridors for some exciting firefights. Leaping through time and kicking alien hide. It's just another day in the life of Duke Nukem. And later, Serious Sam, come to think of it.
Deus Ex is a pretty well-beloved game franchise, known for its blending of RPG and first-person shooter elements. In fact, the original game is considered by many to be an all-time classic. However, what we're here to talk about is its sequel, the 2004 release Deus Ex Invisible War, which was praised at time of release but since then has gained a more middling response from fans of the series. Much like the first game, Invisible War has 3 possible endings, all of varying shades of moral greyness. Alternatively, you can just have a party instead. By carrying a flag through the UNATCO building to a very specific toilet and flushing it, you are transported to an area which the game describes as the real endgame, namely the Deus Ex 2 rap party, where all the game's heroes and villains are dancing happily while penguins burn on plinths nearby. Frankly, your guess is as good as mine. Well, it's certainly a preferable ending to, well, anything that happens in Deus Ex, really.
id Software's shooter Quake was the first ever fully 3D shooter in gaming history. Any fanboy on the internet can probably rant and rave about how great Quake is, so instead, let's focus on Lobotomy Software's 1997 Sega Saturn port of Quake, an exclusive secret level, the Coliseum. Inside it is a wrestling ring. You're not the one laying down the smackdown, no siree. Instead, you walk in and discover, hey, it's a wrestling ring. The game spawns an enemy inside the wrestling ring. So after the game selects a monster, you need to decide who is going to defeat this guy. You gotta choose between 6 buttons with pictures of enemies on them. These guys will basically fight on your behalf, and you need 3 victories in a row to open the exit. After each round, the victor will attack you. You can either kill it or hide from it until it disappears into thin air. Think of it like a surprise heel turn. Although, unlike actual wrestling matches, you can join in and you can influence the outcome of the match from outside of the ring. You're probably thinking, okay, sounds like a bit of a gimmicky level right there. What's my reward? An excellent question. Your reward for completing the Coliseum on Quake on the Sega Saturn, you get nothing. Absolutely nothing. Well, it's more satisfying than watching WWE these days, am I right?
Remember Tofu, the gigantic hunk of sentient bean curd from the secret game mode in Resident Evil 2? Well, number 2 isn't the only Resi game he's appeared in. The gluten-free zombie slayer made a return in an exclusive level in Resident Evil the Darkside Chronicles, a rail shooter released for the Wii in 2009 and the PlayStation 3 in 2012. And this time, he's the bad guy! Secret Mode is an exclusive level set outside the Raccoon Police Department from Resident Evil 2, unlocked after you beat the game on normal difficulty. In this level, instead of fighting zombies, you're gunning down giant lumps of tofu. And since they're nothing but blocks of soy milk, that means they have no weak spots to hit for critical damage. It's every carnivore's worst nightmare. Or perhaps given the context, a vegan's wildest dream.
Building bases, commanding armies, and campy green screen FMV cutscenes. That's what Westwood Studios' iconic real-time strategy game Command & Conquer was all about. Created as a spiritual successor to Westwood's previous title Dune 2, The Battle for Arrakis, it's widely considered the game that defined the real-time strategy genre. Now, Command & Conquer already has quite a few better-known secret levels to its name. For example, the dinosaur missions from the original game, and the giant ant missions from its expansion pack turned sequel, Red Alert. There is actually another unusual secret level that is seldom talked about. The PlayStation port of the game had an exclusive secret level called Pat Sucks, named after quality assurance member Pat Connolly, accessible via password only on the GDI disc. In this mission, you've been sacked without a month's pay, and your former employers are hiding within a heavily fortified base courtesy of the Frank A mercenaries, more than likely named after series composer and video game music god Frank Lepaki, who also voiced the badass commandos of the game.
That was left-handed.
You start off with an MCV to build your base with. Then you also get 11 commandos, or fellow ex-employees, according to the mission briefing, a ludicrous amount of cash, and even the ability to construct the level-exclusive, laser-equipped Orca helicopters. Admit it, we've all had that dream of equipping lasers to helicopters and vaporizing our old bosses.
If there was a list of influential video games that few people have ever heard of, the Shenmue series would probably be an instant ad. Shenmue and its sequel Shenmue 2 were released in 2000 and 2001 respectively for Sega's ill-fated Dreamcast. They told the tale of Ryo Hazuki, a teenager who dropped out of high school to find and beat up the guy who murdered his dad. As cult classics often are, both the Shenmue games were released to much critical success but utter commercial failure, with neither game recouping its development cost. Though luckily its cult following today has reignited interest in the series. It only follows that such an ambitious game with such a large scope would have at least one odd secret buried somewhere inside its massive great open world. You see, in Shenmue 2 there are plenty of things you can do in the game in order to fill your wallet, such as gambling, beating up thugs, stacking crates, and, most importantly, racing ducks. The requirements are, as with a good many of these hidden modes, far too ridiculously specific and extensive to summarise. The main gist of the mode is you can put a bet on a duck with a cute-coloured bow tie on them and control it in a race. Better yet, you can also find your own pet duck and race it yourself. Sure, Grand Theft Auto had racing in cool sports cars, but come on, that's not nearly as cute.
Rolling a marble through an increasingly complex series of slippery slaloms in Atari Games' isometric platformer Marble Madness is tricky stuff. The Commodore 64 version was home to what may be one of the most unfair secret levels ever. To access it, you must roll the marble up the left-hand side of the zigzag ramp in order to land on the nearby area. You'll need to place it 3 squares diagonally left of the corner of the red arrow, while tilting it left downward by just a few pixels. Once the timer has reached 13 seconds, a portion of the floor will sink, thus warping you to the water maze. Everything is a hazard here. The river, the carnivorous plants, the tunnels that lead to nowhere, the bridge that'll crumble if you roll halfway across it, and so on. The only way to actually complete the water maze is in 2-player mode. And let me just say, if you fail this level, you're zapped back to level 2. You only get 1 chance at this, so listen up. If player 2 sticks their marble on the pink square to the top right, it will allow players to ride the lilies like boats across the water. They'll need to ride the waterfall and traverse a very thin platform in order to reach a big pink arena. After knocking the 2 black marbles off the edge, both players will be awarded a lovely 100,000 points for their efforts. After that, it's back to level 2. Considering how difficult it is to actually complete the water maze, it's likely that someone on the team got bored and snuck in a level that they thought no one else could find.
So far, we've talked about a fair few hidden levels, but how about hiding entire games inside another game? And no, we're not talking about being able to play older games inside a newer game like some games do, we're talking about hiding a whole different game inside your game. If I were less original, I might even describe it as gameception. Frog Fractions 2 is probably the single most oddly marketed game in the world, being promoted entirely through a couple of very odd alternate reality games, and when it was finally released, rather than being traditionally released, it came out hidden inside another game. That game being GLITTERMITTEN Grove, a relatively unassuming game about fairies. The game is accessed by either building as high as possible into the sky, digging as deep as possible into the ground, or for people who don't care much for such effort, simply typing butts upon loading a new game. Frog Fractions 2 itself is also very odd indeed, having very little to do with frogs or fractions, and featuring cryptic objectives and unusual little minigames including an Obama shaving simulator and the ability to import your save file from Mass Effect 2, which is claimed by the developer to be part of a larger puzzle, as if the circumstances leading up to the game's release and the method of its distribution weren't puzzling enough.
What 90s shooters out there let you turn into a dog, splatter enemies with an enchanted baseball bat, or let you clear out rooms with a weapon called the Drunk Missile Launcher? The answer is Rise of the Triad: Dark War. Created by the self-proclaimed developers of Incredible Power, yes, that was their real name, and published by Apogee Software, also known as 3D Realms, Rise of the Triad was chock-filled with a surreal assortment of weapons, power-ups, and other wacky features. Its expansion pack, Extreme Rise of the Triad, had its fair share of unfair and gimmicky maps, of which the most bizarre is the Grand Vomitorium, a warp-only level made by mapmaker and playtester Joe Siegler. Its purpose? To make you feel as nauseous and annoyed as possible. You need to hop a ride on floating pads in huge rooms with "You do not belong here" scrawled across each wall. Scattered across the floor are countless elasto balls and shrooms power-ups that'll not only make your camera shake and flash like crazy, but it'll also make you bounce off walls like a rubber ball which has been accelerating towards peak velocity for about 5 hours. After that, you'll have to slip through a few tight corridors surrounded by the void in order to be teleported to another area, where Cheat Now is spelt with floating hover pads in the distance. You've got next to no time to dodge the incoming float pads that'll push you off the edge of the map, killing you instantly. The exit is within an invisible corridor. Again, it's surrounded by the void. If you fall into that, you're dead. Suffice to say, the Grand Vomitorium is quite possibly one of the weirdest secret levels in gaming. You certainly don't get levels designed like this one anymore.
And that, dear friends, was 10 surreal and obscure secret levels.
Let me just say thank you very much for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe to me, Jake the Voice. Be sure to subscribe to my wonderful sentient mattress chum.
That's me. And of course, leave a comment if you liked it, leave a comment if you didn't like it. Either way, it means a lot to us.
Thank you very much for checking this out, and have a good one.
Ta-ta!